Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. John Gluckman. I'm a retired doctor of chiropractic, and my job today is to share some information about a topic that I'm very passionate about, and that is the Omega Actify water machine. It comes in this lovely box. This is the actual product itself. And I'm going to basically share with you as much as I know about it, and my focus will be more on a clinical basis rather than the technical aspects of the machine. We want to talk about the issues in healthcare that are manifested by many people to which this product is the appropriate solution. And I'm going to just quickly tell you what we're going to talk about today, and then we'll get right into it. We're going to first focus on the one issue that really is very troubling to many of us, and that is the fact that many of us are dehydrated and we manifest a lack of energy, a lack of clarity, a lack of focus, lots of aches and pains. The second issue is going to be the chlorine issue and the adverse side effects of chlorine coming into our body from city water. The third issue is going to be the whole area of oxidative stress and the effect of free radicals on our body, on aging and inflammation. The next issue is going to be the alkaline acid balance and the fact that many of us are far too acidic, and that manifests in all kinds of issues such as heartburn and obesity and many other conditions. The last issue will be on the malabsorption problem. Many of us are taking in very expensive food, but we're not getting the value of it. And of course, I'll make the point that this is a unique product. No other product is like it in the market, in that it has the amized fusion technology that is only available through Omega Global. It's the same technology that is available in the wand and in the pendant that so many of us are now used to and would not dare live without. So these are the issues we'll cover, and I'll give it my best to make the case that every one of us in this room should invest in this product and technology. And we'll talk about the pricing issue and the fact that I'll make the case that you can't afford not to have this in your home. So with that being said, let's just get started. My experience with water started about 3 years ago. I had been a chiropractor for over 20 years. I had built one of the largest multidisciplinary clinic in Western Canada. And in all that time, I was not aware of the importance of hydration and good quality water. When I first was introduced to ionized water, my first week in that process, I had a chance to see people who were subjected to live blood cell analysis and who demonstrated one of the most unique forms of change in their blood picture, which is what we call rouleau formation. What that meant was that instead of their little blood cells being free-floating in the dark background, they were all clustered or clumped together in long rows. And as I started looking at that, I wondered, what is the significance of this, and the fact that 80 to 90% of the people that we tested showed this phenomenon. And as I started thinking about it, this was, what was so significant was that many people who come to see chiropractors, massage therapists, acupuncturists, medical doctors, they complain of low energy, aches and pains, always being tired, not having a proper focus, not able to stay on target with anything they want to do. And the common denominator to all those conditions is something we call hypoxia. Hypo, too little, oxia, oxygen, therefore too little oxygen. Well, the question then is, since all of us breathe the same air, which has the oxygen in it, how is it that some people have energy all the time and others are always chronically tired, or very unenergetic or lethargic? And the answer comes in this simple little illustration. When you take a little red blood cells, we define those little red blood cells as biconcave. In other words, they have a dimple on both sides. And in that dimple, they carry something called hemoglobin, which is the iron-carrying molecule that then carries the oxygen. Now, when cells are floating on their own without touching one another, each little red blood cell can carry a hemoglobin on each side. Therefore, it has 100% oxygen carrying capacity, so that your brain, your toes, your fingers all get all the oxygen you need all day long, and you express full energy, vitality, etc. On the other hand, the 85 to 90% of the people that manifest this rouleau formation, these clustering of these little red blood cells, let's have a look at that. You take two of them together, so that here's one blood cell, here's another one. We put them together. This surface here and this one here can no longer carry the hemoglobin. We're now reduced to 50% oxygen carrying capacity. However, if I put 10 together, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, each of those inner surfaces, except for the last two on the outsides, that's 18 out of 20, are not able to carry the hemoglobin. You're now reduced to 2 out of 20, or only 10% oxygen carrying capacity. That really explains for us why so many people are chronically tired and out of sorts. Well, then the question is, what is it that we're drinking, all of us, every day, that leads us to a state of dehydration? Well, coffees and teas are diuretic. Many of the bottled waters that many of us drink are what we call reverse osmosis. They don't have the value because all the minerals have been stripped out. The various soft drinks, the pops, again, real problematic for the body's intake. So the body wants specifically to drink real good water. There are cultures around the world that are able to live to 90 and 100. They usually live in mountainous regions like the Caucasus, the Himalayas, the Andes, and typically those people who live a long time were drinking water that came from a source in the mountains with glacier melt and major downpour down major rivers, with the water rushing down rocks, picking up minerals, exposed to the sun and elements, moving very rapidly. That's the best quality water you can get. And what an ionizer does is it tries to replicate that same water. Now, that experience that I first had with this rouleau formation was so dramatic that when we tried a person before they had some ionized water, and then immediately after they drank a glass of ionized water, their blood picture changed completely and they had normal free-floating red blood cells. So it told me that ionized water solved the problem of dehydration, and almost everybody that started drinking this water expressed much more energy, vitality. Well, I had exactly the same experience 1 week after I first saw the wand and the Omega Energy product. I was in Idaho and visiting a naturopathic friend, and I noticed that he had a blood cell microscope, and we asked his sister if she would volunteer. She was his receptionist, and we took a little spot of blood, put it on a slide, projected it up on a screen, and sure enough, her blood manifested the rouleau formation. I didn't know how to wand the way I know how to wand today. All I did was a couple of turns around her head, around her heart, and around her abdomen area, and in less than a minute, I was done. Then we asked her to give us another little sample of blood. We redid it, and both the doctor and myself had our jaws drop as we saw this perfect representation of her blood. Her blood cells completely transformed simply with the application of zero-point field energy. So we know that the water does this, we now know that the energy does this, and we now have the combination of the water and the zero-point field energy in one machine. No other product on the market has this. That's the number one issue that recommends this product to us as a great investment. The second issue that many people suffer from, and that is a condition known as oxidative stress. Oxidative stress has been described as the primary reason for premature aging, premature inflammation, and oxidative stress is another word for free radicals running wild without the appropriate antioxidant counterbalance. So let's talk about free radicals. Let's talk about antioxidants for a minute. Another word for free radicals are oxidants. A free radical is defined as a molecule missing an electron from its outer ring. It's highly unstable. It's like a Pac-Man trying to find another tissue, another cell that has an electron that it can steal so that it can calm down. But when it does that, it has just created another free radical, and that starts a cascade, almost like a dominoes effect. And unless it's stopped by sufficient antioxidants coming into the body, we have a problem. So if it attacks, say, cartilage tissue over a period of time, you develop arthritis. If it attacks the covering of your nerve, called the myelin sheath, over time, you may develop multiple sclerosis. So free radicals are definitely something to want to eliminate in your body. You cannot fully eliminate them because they're created by yourself all the time. They're created exogenously or from the outside by stress, by inappropriate drinks, by all the processing in our foods, by cooking the foods excessively, etc. So the question then becomes, where do you get antioxidants? Well, 30 years ago, we never even paid attention to antioxidants. And we had the aerobics revolution, and then we found out that many people that were highly trained aerobic athletes were prematurely aging. The same doctor that coined the term the aerobics revolution, Kenneth Cooper, also coined the term the antioxidant revolution because he recognized that too much oxygen intake, as in elite athletes, was creating premature aging. So where do we get our antioxidants? Well, we eat fruit, or if we don't eat enough fruit, we are suggested that we take supplements, vitamin A, C, E, etc. And the drugstores and the food and health stores are full of them now, huge shelf space devoted to them. So therefore, we know it's an important thing. The other place that we get a lot of antioxidants is internally, our own body. Our body produces several compounds, one of them being glutathione, another one being SOD or superoxide dismutase, another one being catalase. These three major antioxidants produced by our body decrease with age. So they kind of peak at around 25 or 30, and then they decrease as you get older, just when you need them most. So we have several reasons to want to increase our antioxidant intake. Now, many of the doctors that have been involved in the whole ionizing water movement in recommending these types of products to their clients will tell you that the single most valuable aspect of ionized water is the fact that it's a very strong or rich source of antioxidants. This is the only chemistry I'm going to give you. The way this works is as follows. The water comes into the machine through an adapter that's tied up to your tap. It comes in and then it clears the chlorine through a filter in the back. Then it goes through this engine that has these 5 plates of titanium and platinum, and the water is changed. The water you're going to drink is going to come out of this flexible hose, and that'll be the alkaline water, which has these antioxidants. The secondary hose, this gray hose, will sit in your sink and it'll run off, or you'll collect it for your skin use as a beauty water. But let's just talk about the chemistry of what happens when water comes in contact with these plates and also with 80 watts of electric power that is generated by this device. The formula is 2H2O. So 2 molecules of water result in 2 OH negative, 2 hydroxyl ions, plus hydrogen, or H2 gas. The magic is when the H2, the hydrogen, touches the platinum, and it turns into 2H positive, so 2 positive radicals plus 2 free electrons. It's those 2 free electrons that makes the big difference. So all of a sudden, if you're drinking a lot of water that's generated by this device, you're taking in a lot of free electrons, and those free radicals that are inherently in your body, or you're taking them in from stress or any other sources, are finding little free electrons to grab onto. They don't have to attack healthy tissue. That's one of the biggest benefits of this water. Okay, and the way we can demonstrate that this water is an antioxidant is as follows. I'm going to just pour out a little bit of water into each of these glasses. The first one is Dasani. It's a product from Coca-Cola. It's a product that usually comes from city water, put through a very small little filters or sieves. About 5 gallons of water is used to create 1 gallon of processed reverse osmosis water. So it's highly inefficient in terms of water use, petroleum, et cetera. All these products come in plastic bottles that have inherent problems of leakage of chemicals into them. And unfortunately, many of them end up in landfills. So these are some of the downfalls of drinking these various waters. But in the meantime, let's just show you the antioxidant effect of these various products. So there's a device known as an ORP meter, which I'll show you just in a second. And ORP stands for oxidation reduction potential. This is the device, this is the device right here. It's made by a company called Milwaukee, and it's the SM500 model. At the tip here, we have a platinum electrode. And as I don't know if you can zoom in on the number here, as we swing it around, we measure that the ambient air in this room is generating about 310 positive millivolts of electricity. And the significance of that is that if I was to cut an apple in half and just lay it out on the table and leave it out, it would turn brown, wouldn't it? If I was to leave metal outdoors in the elements for a while, it would rust. Now, that same oxygen in the air that's affecting the apple or the metal is the same oxygen we breathe in 20 to 30 times every minute. So if it's having that effect on the apple, if it's having that effect on metal, what effect is it having internally in each one of us? And that's when I really understood the importance of the danger of oxygen without sufficient antioxidants. Okay, so we have a reading for the ambient air. Now let's see whether the waters that most of us are drinking, now you can see, I don't know if you can see that close, but it's around 320 positive. And then Aquafina is again 320 positive, 330, 340. Okay, Evian water, which is more of a spring water, which is a better choice, is at around 300, so that's slightly better. 7-Up, which is a representative of the soft drink products, is around 385. So far, it is the most corrosive antioxidant. Then we have Powerade, which is supposed to be really good for athletic replacement of electrolytes, is at 362. It's pretty close. Now, this bottle has some tap water from Vancouver that we just took out just recently, and it's already at 560, going to over 600, I'm sure. And so of all the waters tested so far, our local drinking water is over 600. So it is by far the most corrosive antioxidant. And then this water in this bottle was generated about 2 hours ago from this machine here, and it is an alkaline water. And if you had a chance to see this, you could see that it's dropping quite quickly, and it will hit, it has already hit negative 155. So of all the waters, the only one that is reductive as opposed to oxidative, the only one that actually contributes free electrons to calm down free radicals is the water generated by this machine. Everybody sees that? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's the story of the antioxidant value of this water. The other story, before we go too far into the rest of the water, is the problem with chlorine. Now, chlorinated water is, I don't know, it's one of my pet peeves. When I first was introduced to the concept of ionized water, I did some Google searches, and I Googled adverse side effects of chlorinated city water. And when I got my results and started looking through the top 10 articles, I was rocked to the sole of my feet with concern and apprehension and an understanding of the significance of this problem. So let's just talk about chlorine for a minute. For those of you that may remember your history, 1914 to 1918 was one of the most troubling times in the world history. It was World War I. The Germans, the French, the English, the Americans, many other Russians, etc., Turks, were involved in a major world struggle. And they came upon the idea that they should lob bombs or shells at one another filled with mustard gas and other chlorine-based chemicals. Well over 500,000, close to 1 million men were killed through the corrosive effect of chlorine mustard gas, and millions of others were maimed for life. At the time of the armistice in late 1918, when the guns stopped, there were massive stockpiles of chlorine gas and mustard gas all over the world. American companies, Swiss companies, German companies, French companies that had been producing all these products had literally millions of tons of these products left over. Corporations don't like to waste material or to dump things down the drain, so they started thinking, how can we use these chlorine stockpiles? And they reasoned that if they were successful in killing human tissues, couldn't they kill bacteria as well? And so they tried it. And before you know it, a new movement came about where they realized that putting small amounts of chlorine in city water could kill bacteria and other parasites and be delivered to people's homes, and people would drink that water and it would be very beneficial. The net result of having a massive transformation of city water chlorinated was that millions of people did not die of waterborne bacterial diseases. So public health advocates were claiming this as a major advance in our health history. And it was, except that there are usually unintended consequences for most things that we do to change nature. And the unintended consequence of chlorine in city water was as follows. If you were to freeze frame the 1918 statistics on cancer, the prevalence of cancer in any society at that time was roughly 1 in 300 people. Today, 90 years later, it's 1 in 3 for women and 1 in 2 for men. If you were to freeze frame the rate of heart disease in men and women, it was almost negligible. You'd be hard-pressed to see any citations in the medical literature about heart disease, heart attacks, strokes, etc. at that time. Admittedly, people didn't live as long as they do today, but the net result was that we just didn't have that. Today, over 1.5 million people in North America have an event. The most common event is death. You have a heart attack, you die, you never give anybody any warning. The other thing that really changed dramatically was the rate of miscarriage. At the time of the end of the World War, there was no, there were large families, there was no contraception, to speak of, and the danger was for women was in childbirth not to lose a pregnancy prematurely. Well, today miscarriages are at an alarming rate. Also, the rate of fertility, the rate of sperm motility in men, sperm counts in men. All of these things are way down. The common connection for all those three things is chlorine. When chlorine comes into us, it changes into chloramine, trihalomethanes, THMs, and chloroform, none of which are intended to be in the human body. So here's the point. If the city of Vancouver or any city that you currently live in were to say tomorrow, we are discontinuing the use of chlorine in city water, I would be organizing a class action suit against the city. Because I would say, I don't want to move back to the days when waterborne bacterial diseases like dysentery and cholera were going to kill large populations. However, once the city has delivered the water to my property line and the water is going to enter my house, my kitchen, my shower, etc., I have an obligation to remove that chlorine from the water that I consume and the people that I care about consume. Because knowing what I know, I can't go back to not knowing what I know. And I would suggest to you that this is something highly important. So the machine that we have in front of us has a chamber in the back that has a filter that has an average life cycle of about 6 months, and it'll take out all the chlorine. And I'm going to just give you a quick demonstration of that right now. So here's the city water supply that we had before. I'm going to just put a little bit of water here. And here's the water supply that I generated from this machine about 2 hours ago that you just saw had a negative charge. So, okay, so now I have here in my hand a chlorine test solution that you could buy at any swimming pool or hot tub store in any city. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few drops in this water and a few drops in this water. Okay, now the scale of chlorine in city water is the lower diagram here. These colors here that you can see that go from light yellow to bright orange. The water that came from the city water supply, as you can see, is bright yellow. Can you see that color okay? Great. Now, the water that came from this machine through the filter, I put the chlorine test solution in it too, and as you can see, it is clear. That means that the chlorine has been fully removed from that water. I would recommend that everybody consider getting the chlorine out of their life. And, you know, for showers, for bath, you know, you're getting a far greater hit of chlorine in those activities than you are when you drink. At a minimum, you should go to your hardware store and ask for a filter for your shower head. Be prepared to change that filter frequently. And if you want a more robust solution, talk to somebody who can give you some advice at a typical water store. There are other solutions for that that you can look into. So let's just summarize what we've talked about. We've talked about dehydration and energy. We've talked about antioxidant value. We've talked about chlorine. The next issue that's really important for many people is this whole issue of acid-alkaline balance. And for that, we're going to be using the upper part of this chart. You can see that it goes all the way from orange through yellow, through light green, through blue, and dark purple. Orange is highly acidic, purple is highly alkaline. Now, the pH scale, which describes the acid-alkaline balance in the human body, goes from 0 to 14, 7 being neutral, and it goes up in gradations of each point increase is actually 10 times because it's logarithmic. So if I go from 4 to 5, I've gone up 10 times in acidity. Or if I go from 7 to 8, I've gone 10 times in alkalinity. If I go from 7 to 8 to 9, it's 10 times 10 or 100 times. So when we talk about alkaline water at 9.5 pH, we're talking about water that's 500 times more alkaline than neutral. And when we talk about drinks over here that are highly acidic at 3 pH, we're talking about 10,000 times more acidic than neutral. So that's what we're going to check into right now. And let's be clear why acid-alkaline balance is important. In 1923, a German scientist by the name of Otto Warburg postulated and did some research that proved that cancer thrives on an acidic environment but cannot survive in an alkaline environment. In 1931, he was awarded the or the Nobel Prize for Medicine. Now, 1931 to 2010 is like, what is it, 70, 80 years now. In 80 years, has the incidence of cancer increased or decreased? As you recall, I said it was 1 in 300 before, and now it's 1 in 3 or 1 in 2. What's up with that? Well, here's what's up with that. Most of us, through what we're eating and the environmental issues that we're dealing with, both in our drinks, in our stress, and in our processed foods, are far, far too acidic. Now, acidity can be measured with strips for your saliva and urine. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in the acidity or alkalinity of your blood. That's maintained by the body at a very precise number of 7.3654. And the body does a great job through some buffering mechanisms. If you're too acidic, it will steal minerals from your bones and tissue in order to keep you at that level. But where the issue really comes is in another area, and that's called your interstitial fluid. Let me give you an example of what that's all about. If you can imagine a child just receiving an aquarium from his parents and a few guppies or a few little goldfish in there, and here's your food, son, just put a little bit every day. So the fish come up and they eat the food, and then after a few hours they poop in the water. The next day they eat the food and they repeat the process over and over and over again. After a while, if the water is never cleaned or if there's insufficient oxygen in the water, the fish are going to flip upside down. And a kind parent will say, well, I'll get you some more fish at Walmart or wherever. But the child will say, Dad, shouldn't we be cleaning this water? Well, the analogy here is this. We have 100,000 cells, each one of us in our body. These cells are like the little fish swimming in this polluted water. Because we're not very efficient at cleaning out the interstitial fluid, that fluid that supports all our cells in the body. As adults, we're about 70% water. 60% of that is within our cells. 40% is outside of our cells. That's this interstitial fluid. And what we want to do is move that fluid from about a 6 or 6.5 pH level gradually up to about 7.1, 7.2. And the way we do that is by drinking water that's between 8.5 to 9.5 pH. Now, on the front of this device, there are 4 buttons for the alkaline settings, starting with 1, 2, 3, and 4. We want people to drink between 1 and 3. Number 4 is more for cleaning purposes. At the same time, there's a button there for neutral water, and that's appropriate to take with your medications. And then there's 4 buttons for the acidity level. And the acidity level, the water is very useful for toning your skin, for your hair. It's also wonderful for plants. So there's lots of good uses for that water as well. But let's just focus on the alkalinity for a minute. So let's see which of the products that we're currently consuming along this spectrum here have an alkaline or an acid state. So this little red fluid, I don't know if you can see the redness in it, this is a pH testing solution. We put 3 or 4 drops in each one of these, and you can see they turn pretty colors. And when I do these kinds of demonstrations in homes that have children, I insist that the kids stand really close to this. When we come to the software or the soft drinks, you will see why. So I'm just going to give these a quick little mix. Try not to contaminate these too much. So you can see clearly that there's quite a range of colors here. That these two bottles here, the Dasani and Aquafina from Coca-Cola and from Pepsi, are definitely on the acidic scale. Going back to the chart here at the top, we've got yellow and orange, with Aquafina definitely being more orange. The spring water is somewhere in the middle between neutral and slightly alkaline. The two pops, the two soft drinks, are definitely way down on the orange scale. The city of Vancouver has successfully made their water pretty well neutral, and one of the ways they do that is by introducing 14 pH lye into the water. That's what they make soap out of. And of course, the water that we're drinking, as you can see, has got a beautiful purple color to it. Now, the Japanese who developed the ionized water movement call these two waters, these reverse osmosis waters, they call them dead waters. And these waters are producing some very serious side effects in many young people. We're seeing many athletes who will not think of going anywhere without always having a water bottle with them. And if you drink this for years at a time, what you're doing is you're putting your body into a constant state or chronic state of mineral depletion, so that your body is starting to leach from bone and connective tissue those minerals that it needs. And as a chiropractor, I used to look at x-rays for the signs of early onset of osteoporosis. We're now seeing that in people way younger than is reasonable, in their 20s and 30s. And we used to think that osteoporosis was a post-menopausal disease of women. The truth today, unfortunately, is that osteoporosis is a disease of pre-pubertal boys and girls. The reason being, when we were growing up, we were outside. We ran, we skipped rope, we played football, baseball, hockey, whatever. Our parents had to call us in for dinner. They had to cajole us to come back into the house. Today, your kids, you're afraid that they'll get picked up by some strangers. They're sitting on their computers, they're doing Facebook, or they're doing MSN, they're playing with their video games. They're not getting the exercise to create strong bones when they need them when they're teenagers. By the time they're in their 20s and 30s, they're drinking this water and they're showing osteopenia, which is 30% bone density loss in their 20s and 30s. We've never seen this before. We've already understood that there is an epidemic of obesity. We understand that there's a diabetic epidemic. Well, the epidemic that's not being spoken about is osteoporosis. Folks, I really encourage you to be cautious with liberal use of this water. When you have invested in one of these machines and you've forgotten to take your good water with you for the day, and you need to buy some water, you go to the store, please look for spring water. Please avoid these, and especially these. Now, the Japanese call the soft drinks as cancer in a can. Let me explain why. The average intake amongst North American boys and girls is between 3 and 7 cans of pop per day. Well, as you'll see in a minute, it takes 32 ounces of good alkaline water to neutralize 1 ounce of these pops. Let me show you how this works. Now, has anybody in the audience got acid reflux or heartburn? It's always at least 20 or 30% of the audience always raises their hands. We have the same here today. And so I want to tell you, or I want to show you, how this amazing water clears that up from the very first drink. So here's alkaline waters, here's highly acidic products, and within a couple of drops, you can see that this has become an alkaline solution. And the same thing, I could do that with this one here, and then I could do that here. But here's what does not happen with pop. They stay bright orange. Okay? So this is why I want children to be watching this. So when I go and take one of these, which is now highly diluted, and then I put it back into any of these, you can see that it takes just a couple of drops, and these all become highly acidic again. Even our fabulous alkaline water has no chance against it, and I still have more than half of my glass available. This is how insidious these two products are. And our kids are drinking it in massive amounts. Otherwise, Safeway, Save-On, Walmart would not be devoting massive shelf space to these products. And your kids need to see this. So when I have children standing here, I say to them, hey, Johnny, are you ever going to ask your mother for pop again? Oh, no, not me. And I want that reaction from these kids, okay? So that's the story of acid alkaline. We really need to really recommit to doing everything in our power to drink this kind of alkaline water in order to move our interstitial fluid towards a slightly alkaline level, okay? So again, we've talked about the energy problem with dehydration, about chlorine, about the antioxidant nature of the water. We've now talked about the acid-alkaline balance. The next issue is something that most people don't think about, and that is the malabsorption or the improper absorption of nutrients that many of us experience and manifest in all kinds of disease processes. And one of the amazing things about this technology is that it literally changes the structure of water. So let me explain that. Typically, water, when you receive it in your home or if you get some water from a lake or a river, if you were to put it under a microscope, what you would not see is an individual molecule of H with too little O or O with too little H's. Okay? You wouldn't see one individual molecules of H2O. You would see instead a clump or a cluster of 10 to 20 molecules of H2O being held together by weak hydrogen bonds, something like almost like a little golf ball with holes in it. And this water is, let's call it big with quotation marks. What this machine does is the water coming out comes out as micro-clustered water in groups of 5 to 8 molecules, an average of 6, what we call hexagonally structured water. Now, hexagonally structured water, let's call it small water. Here's the significance. Our blood is made up of 90% water. And it is our blood that carries our nutrients and our oxygen to our cells and to our brain. Now, the individual cells have a membrane that protects the cell and also has some porosities or holes through which we can bring in nutrients and through which we can take out waste material, etc. Now, think of a chain link fence, okay? And I've got a softball, a big softball baseball, and I'm throwing this at the fence. Is it likely that the softball would go through the fence? Not very. But if I now take 5 golf balls and I throw them at the fence, is it likely that they'll go through? Yes, they will. Even if they hit the chain links, they'll go through because they've got momentum and they're the right size. Well, this is exactly what happens with blood made up of small water versus large water. That blood is able to get in to your cells and out way easier. So nutrients and oxygen get taken into the cell easily, and waste products of metabolism are taken out much easier. And then everything starts working better. Your food absorptions, your nutrient absorptions go better. You have overall better vitality, energy, etc. And you don't manifest as many malabsorption type diseases. And the other big thing is that you're able to detoxify much, much easier. And they say, some people say that you are what you eat. It's more true that you are what you absorb, but even more true, you are what you eliminate. And most of us don't eliminate properly. So here's the one unintended benefit of microclustered water that very few people speak about. And that is that the human body, if you want to characterize it as a series of pipes, it gives you a good illustration of the value of this water. So let's imagine we have a food intake pipe that goes all the way down and then comes out the other end. We have breathing pipes, our bronchioles in our lungs. We have our heart with arteries going out and veins coming back. We have our lymphatic drainage system. We have our kidney and bladder. We have our liver system. All of these are made up of pipes. Now, pipes are great when they're wide open, what we call patent. They're not so good when they start being clogged up or restricted. And some of the restrictions that we see in people's arteries come from fatty tissue known as atherosclerotic plaque. 30% of young people today have asthmas that we never saw 30, 40, 50 years ago. When we analyze their bronchioles, they're full of mucus. That's also a fatty tissue. Many people have problems with constipation and improper elimination. And when we look at their lower tracts, their colons, we see that there's mucus covering them as well. One of the amazing effects of alkaline microclustered water, it has the ability to emulsify fat and grease. So as you're drinking this on a regular basis, when you're drinking 2, 3, 4 liters of this a day, in effect, you're getting the similar effect of having a rotor-rooter going through all the pipes of your body, literally reaming out your internal pipes and restoring flow. And if life is anything, it is about flow. And if you can restore proper flow to arteries or to the colon or to your lungs, you've solved most medical problems. Well, I think I've covered most of the major challenges that humans have that would call for a solution. And the solution that is provided by this ionized alkaline water generator that has the 0-point fuel energy solves all those problems. It eliminates the chlorine. It gives you fantastic antioxidant value. It allows your body to move towards an alkaline balance. It allows you to absorb your nutrients much, much easier and remove toxic waste. Overall, it's one of the best investments you can make in your body. So when I have audiences like you out here and I tell them that the price for this device is $2,500 or $24.99 at wholesale, $28.99 at retail, I always get a reaction that, oh God, I don't know if I can afford that. And yet when I ask people, if money were no object, would you want to have one of these? Every hand goes up, because everybody has seen the demonstrations, has heard the information, and can no longer say that I don't understand this or I don't know this. You know what you know, and you know that it's right for you. So then how do we make this affordable such that you can say, I can't afford not to have it? Well, when we ask people to do a quick summary in their own home of what they, their spouse, and their children spend on bottled water in stores or at Safeway or Save-On, spend on pop bottles, pop drinks at school and after school, drink at Starbucks coffee or all the juices that you bring into the house, the average family will, if they do an inventory for a month, will see that they spend between $50 and $150 a month on fluids. It just kind of seeps out of your hands, out of your budget. Well, that alone, at an average of 100 even, in 2 years your machine is paid for just in those savings. The benefits, of course, are that you don't drink these things that we've just demonstrated were very damaging to you. That's one way of justifying the value of the machine. Another one is this. Whether you live in the United States and you deal with the IRS or live in Canada and deal with Revenue Canada, both of our countries have a challenge. We're not creating enough jobs for the population. And so both governments have provided incentive for small home-based business, for entrepreneurs who say, I want to have my home-based business and I want to represent a reputable company and I'm going to market some products in the pursuit of profit. When you do that, then any capital expense such as this is completely a write-off against your other income. In addition to that, your mortgage payments, your rental payments, your utilities, your internet, your travel expenses, some of your entertainment expenses become a legitimate write-off. The average individual joining us in Amega as a business associate who invests in one of these machines will get back probably between $3,000 and $5,000 in tax refund. That's how you can afford to have your machine. That's in year one. In year two, you can't write off this machine a second time, but all your expenses of your home, your rental, etc., and all those other expenses we talked about, they're still there. You'll get another $2,000 to $3,000 in tax refund then. So just investing in this will allow your family to be healthier, will give you money back that you're giving the tax department that you don't know what they're doing with, and will also allow you to eliminate many of the aches and pains that you would have to spend all kinds of money in your own healthcare system to overcome. So, folks, without any further discussion, I make the case that you can't afford not to enjoy an Amega Actify water machine. We have a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions about the Amega Actify water system?
I have a question. John, could you explain what makes this ionizer different than all the other ionizers in the market?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Thank you. The ionizer industry is about 15 years old. The technology goes back about 45 years. In Japan, they took Russian technology and they brought it down to the consumer level in the last 15 years or so. And now there's, as many as 50 different manufacturers that make products that are similar. The one unique feature that this device has that all the others do not is that it is energized by Amega with something known as zero-point field energy through a process known as amized fusion technology. It's a similar technology that goes into our wand that helps people really feel the difference, and also the similar technology that goes into our pendants. What zero-point field energy does is it optimizes cell function all the time. And so it's great to have all the advantages of an ionizer, but to additionally have the ability to have people experience this energized water, that's a serious plus. In terms of the price, we add very little cost to this device compared to many of the other ones, and we give you the fantastic benefit of zero-point field energy. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Sir.
Yes, I wasn't quite clear about your pH scale. Can you clarify that for us, please?
Okay, so when we were talking about the pH scale, I was using this chart here that has orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. The pH scale goes from 0 to 14. The orange is approximately 2 to 3 pH. The very purple is around 10 to 11. The green is 7, which is neutral. So from 7 to 14, which is the extreme end of the alkaline scale, is alkaline. From 7 down to 0 is the acidic side. When we go from 0 to 1 to 2, etc., or from 7 to 8 to 9, we're actually not going by a factor of 1, but rather by a factor of 10, which is the logarithmic scale. So if I go from 7 to 8 to 9, I'm going up by 100 times more alkalinity. When I go the other way, from 7 down to 6 and to 5 and to 4, I'm going down by 100 or 1,000 times more acidic. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, I have a question, Dr. John. How much should someone drink to receive maximum benefit by drinking this
Okay.
Am Water, Actify Water?
Well, that's a great question. Our medical doctors and our nutritionists have been telling us for a long time to drink at least 8 glasses of 8 ounces of water a day. They haven't specified what kind of water, and so many people assume that 8 glasses of anything equals to 8 glasses of water. They don't, as we've already discovered. In the case of ionized water, we basically have a rule of thumb that if you can drink at a minimum half an ounce per pound of your body weight per day, you can really, get to kind of a homeostasis or a balance in your alkaline level. But if you have any issues, any health conditions, and you want to see some magic performed by your own body, move that up to 3/4 to an ounce per pound of body weight. So for instance, a woman at 135 or 140 pounds, divide that by 32 ounces per liter, and that would get you to about 4 liters or a gallon of water. On first blush, that sounds like an awful lot of water. But if you can get into the habit of drinking it a lot in the morning, a little less in the afternoon, and very little in the evening, you'll get that water in, because the water is microclustered. It'll allow you to absorb it without feeling that, bloating or sloshing that you get when you drink any of these other substances or tap water. So I hope that answers that one.
That's great. Thanks, Dr. Buckman.
Thank you, guys.